What's up, guys? Welcome back to episode 2 of my Versus series for Dragon Ball. Today, I'm going to be putting two fighters against each other, two of the same characters from two different series. That's Super 17 from Dragon Ball GT going up against Android 17 from Dragon Ball Super. There's already a video talking about this. I think it was made by Seth the programmer, and I'm not gonna lie to you, after all of that shit that happened last year with Seth the programmer being exposed for being pretty much, pedophile and a bully, I just really lost interest in watching his videos, and from the beginning I wasn't really a fan anyway of his content like that anyway to begin with. But I do remember that he did post a video that was Super 17 versus Android 17, and I believe he had Android 17 from Dragon Ball Super winning. And today I'm gonna let you guys know what I think, or who I think would win in this battle, and I'm gonna give you my take. So let's start with Android 17 from Dragon Ball Super. Alright, so we have Android 17 being a poacher on some distant island, and he's been there for, I guess, 14 years or something like that. He's got a family now and he's married, but he's somehow able to fight with Super Saiyan Blue Goku. And even if, you could argue that Super Saiyan Blue Goku was essentially holding back because he has an ability to control his ki in blue, but at the same time, I still think that for Goku to even want to recruit 17 into the Universe 7 tournament of power, I believe that he had to have had considerable strength, and he was, throwing fists with Super Saiyan Blue. I feel that, some parts of me feel like I don't really understand why they had Goku go blue to test out everyone's strength when he could have just went Super Saiyan God, the first form, and did it that way. I feel like that would have made a lot more sense, but, Dragon Ball Super doesn't really make that much sense, but he does fight Android 17 in Super Saiyan Blue, and he finds that he's formidable enough in that form to recruit him, and to me that's pretty telling if Goku wants him to fight in a tournament of power where their whole universe is essentially at stake. So there's that. Another thing to point out with Android 17 from Dragon Ball Super is that he has a very high IQ, and he was able to use that to his advantage against Jiren. Alright, so he basically uses his ability to create a shield, his force field ability. That's something that he used, I think, once in Dragon Ball Z against Piccolo, and I feel like it was really cool that they implemented that in Super and made that, they kind of like expanded upon that move and, made it to where like he mastered that whole force field thing, because he was able to create multiple domes outside of himself that Jiren had to break through in order to buy time and in order to kind of piss Jiren off. And in some cases you could argue that it was actually really effective against Jiren. Once again, I don't know how to make sense of that, but the shields and the force fields abilities that he was using in the tournament of power were very helpful, and they were a very key part in when they were all going up against Jiren. I mean, in the end, they all got spanked by Jiren, but it did actually help slow Jiren down and did get him pissed off. And it has a very good defensive ability. The force field ability that Android 17 has, it's very good for defensive purposes. It has it's very good for, he's very good with his defensiveness. He may not have the most offensive ability when it comes to just raw power and fighting, but he does have unlimited stamina and he does have unlimited ki, so he's able to keep that defense going for forever, basically. If he uses that, it's going to be really hard to break through and really annoying to break through. And in some cases as well, that ability also gives him time for the other opponent to get tired. And when the other opponent is tired, while they're tired, 17 is not tired at all because he has unlimited stamina. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that Android 17 in Dragon Ball Super is a human. I do believe he's still an android. He did say that he has kids, but I think he mentions when he's talking to Goku outside of the campfire that two of them are adopted and the one might just be for the woman that he's with. That's what makes the most sense because he still does have unlimited ki. So those are really the things that Android 17 has from Dragon Ball Super to his advantage going into this battle. I do think that over 14 years of training, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was about 14 years. If it wasn't, I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was about like 14 years of training. But the only thing that I would say about that is that we don't really see who Android 17 has trained with or fought with in that time period. But then you got to look at Frieza and think, well, Frieza trained for 4 months and they did not tell us or, expand upon how he did his training. I mean, I'm pretty sure Frieza didn't have anyone to a formidable training partner either. They don't really explain that. So that's kind of irrelevant. And I know a lot of people get angry because they, just because of the fact that he's on a farm with, a bunch of like deer and animals, and, he gets exponentially stronger to the point where he's able to fight, Super Saiyan Blue Goku without getting one-tapped. And if you look back on how Goku was one-tapped by Beerus, well, before he ever knew anything about God Ki, it would make, it would just probably make more sense narratively if Super Saiyan Blue was a little bit stronger, but I guess they're just trying to showcase how strong he actually is. So yes, Android 17 is way stronger than we give him credit for in Dragon Ball Super, even though it may not make sense. He does have a reasonable amount of power, he has high IQ, and he does have an ability that allows him to buy time and protects him pretty well from outside attacks. Now, for going on to Super 17 from Dragon Ball GT. Now, this is where things get a little bit crazy because Super 17 from Dragon Ball GT has some pretty outstanding feats himself. Super 17 was able to, before he actually turns into Super 17, we have 17 from the canon timeline, who once again is a poacher and who's on a farm and who's amongst the wild animals working down there, for the majority of his life. And then we have another 17 created by Dr. Mew called Hellfighter 17. Now, Hellfighter 17 and current 17, their ki without fusing their ki together was able to cause a tear in the dimension similar to what Buhan did and what Gotenks did. But the difference here is that instead of creating a tear or destroying things over time, they instantaneously ripped a hole straight into Hell and caused Hell to actually merge with Earth and become a single plane. And that's just off of the ki alone. So a lot of people really undermine and disregard that feat as if it was really nothing special just because Buhan and Gotenks did something similar. But what a lot of people seem to miss is that they didn't just tear a hole into the dimension, they actually combined two dimensions together. They merged Hell and Earth into one. They basically tore the space in between that separates two different realities. And to me, that's just an insane feat, and that's even before he actually turns into his completed form, which is Super 17. So that's the first feat right there to really mention and take into account during this battle. And next up with Super 17. We have the fact that he was able to actually guess where Goku, well, he was not guess, but he was actually able to feel the vibrations and sense the vibrations in the air around him, to the point where he was actually faster than instant transmission because he could sense where Goku was going to be before Goku even got there. Now, this is something that is pretty much unheard of. I mean, I don't really like connecting the movies to GT because a lot of people think that, it's kind of like going. A lot of people say that, you're just trying to wank GT because you're trying to connect the movies, and they don't, overtly say that the movies are connected to GT. But Dragon Fist is from the movies. Cooler shows up in GT, who is from the movies, and Goku Shaking Hell was also already done in a movie. So those are three things right there that correlate. And plus, people like to make the argument that GT isn't canon, and they say that the movies aren't canon. So it just really, it's kind of hard to ignore that and to not mention the movies. So for me, the only time where this has happened was against Cooler in the Cooler movie. But aside from that and connecting the movies, it's really a feat that's unheard of. The only person that I can recall that was able to get past Goku's instant transmission was essentially Jiren, and I do think it was Hit. I'm not sure if he actually used that against Hit, but I do know that Hit was able to fuck with time. So either way, that's a huge advantage that Hit had. But just being able to outdo the instant transmission and to be somewhere even faster than instantaneous movement is insane. We don't see Android 17 do that and display a feat like that in Dragon Ball Super at all. So, that's also another thing to note, is that he was able to outmaneuver and be faster than Super Saiyan 4 Goku, who was already presumably faster than light at that point. The last thing to mention about Super 17 is the thing that I'm pretty sure all of you were thinking about. It's his ki absorption, right? So his ki absorption ability. Now, the thing with Super 17's ki absorption ability is that he he doesn't have the device on the palm of his hands like the earlier designed androids did. That was pretty much a design flaw that Jiro learned from, because in Dragon Ball GT they got rid of the palm device, the little red devices on their palms that they could absorb ki with, and instead Android Super 17 can actually absorb ki by just tanking the attack. So his whole body is able to withstand any attack and actually make that power his own and amplify his strength even stronger than the opponent that he's fighting. So lots of people seem to say that, Dragon Ball Super 17 has a high IQ, so he would be able to deduce this, and he would be able to win because he wouldn't let Super 17 absorb any of his ki. But even if he doesn't absorb any of his ki, Super 17 does have, I would say, is slightly stronger just due to the feats of the character alone. If you're just comparing the characters by themselves, and even if you want to give the edge to 17 from Dragon Ball Super, I don't think that he would be able to catch on to that soon enough. It would at least take one energy blast, or at least a few of them, before he would actually catch on to the fact that Super 17 is not just tanking his attacks, but he's absorbing them. So, I think that ability right there solidifies a win for Super 17. If you think about it, you would never know that he could absorb ki. And a lot of people saying that, Goku was pretty dumb in the regards to in GT, because he keeps on spamming him with ki attacks as he's standing there. But what you're not understanding, what people don't realize, is that you wouldn't know that he could absorb ki unless he had those devices on his hands, or if he actually had some type of was doing some type of thing that would make you know that he was absorbing ki. I mean, he's literally just standing there and tanking the attacks. So I believe that Super 17 would have the edge if he's able to absorb at least one ki attack from 17. And the thing is, 17's fighting is really based off of ki attacks alone. He doesn't have many physical attacks in his arsenal. A lot of his creative abilities come from his dome attacks, his force fields, and his ki blast, because he's pretty crafty in how he uses his energy, and he has an unlimited amount, so he can, work with that. So I would say that Super 17 does have the slight edge in this battle. The only way I could see 17 from Dragon Ball Super winning is if he has prior knowledge that Super 17 can absorb ki, because then at that point, all he would have to do is just make it an up close and personal fight and just not use any ki blasts at all. And even then, I do think that it would be an uphill battle just because of how strong Super 17 is portrayed in Dragon Ball GT versus how 17 is portrayed in Dragon Ball Super. It's just there's a huge discrepancy there. You can clearly see that Super 17 is the superior android in terms of strength and has more hacks and more abilities. And, on top of all that, you can hate on GT all you want, but GT characters are pretty broken if you look at the progression of the power jumps in Dragon Ball GT. Now, the power jumps in Dragon Ball Super are also ridiculous, but it's pretty common that in Dragon Ball characters get tons of Aspal power-ups and essentially out of nowhere, and it's really hard to scale things because they don't really explain much. Just as much as GT explains, Super doesn't really do any better with explaining things either. They just kind of only thing that they do better is they give the characters a little bit more depth and better writing. So character wise, 17 from Dragon Ball Super I would say is a better character, but Super 17 takes this one. I believe that he'd be able to wipe the floor with 17 from Dragon Ball Super. They'd probably spar and fuck around in the first half of the fight, but I think the second half of the fight, Android 17 would be knocked out, and yeah, he'd be destroyed. So that's what I think. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that I'm wrong? Like, do you guys disagree? Do you think that Android 17 from Dragon Ball Super is way stronger? Personally, I don't believe that. Just because Dragon Ball Super does incorporate God Ki, I don't let that cloud my judgment, because I know that God Ki hasn't been proven to be anything special, because Frieza was able to train for 4 months and beat the shit out of Goku, who had 2 levels prior of God Ki. So to me, I don't really give God Ki that much credit, because it doesn't even give itself credit in the show. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. I'd like to hear if you guys think that if you guys think that 17 from Super would win. List down below why you think that, and put down your points as to why you think that he's stronger and has greater feats. But anyways, that's the end of episode 2. Let me know if you guys want to see any other requests for the battle series, and like the video, because liking the video helps this video get out there, and it does help the algorithm push my video way out there so people could see it. But yeah, so I'll see you guys. I hope you guys stay blessed, and I'm out.